ARK has had many updates over the last 11 years, and in a lot of those updates, there's been some features that haven't made the final cut. There's a whole list of creatures, items, biomes, previous concepts for other creatures, and there was even some titans that didn't make it into Extinction. So in this video, I'm going to be going over 50 unreleased features in ARK. First off, we have Primal Survival. This was announced at E3 2016, and would be a brand new game mode for ARK Survival Evolved that would make it to where you could play as any dino. We don't know all the specifics of it, but it seemed like you could raise your young and you could have like nests, as well as, you could play as pretty much any dinosaur you wanted to, and they all had their own unique visions as well. We did have a little trailer, which I'll have linked down in the description if you want to watch the whole thing, but this ended up getting canceled a little bit later, so we never actually got to play Primal Survival, which kind of sucks. I think this would have actually been a really fun game mode considering how much play as a dino gets modded all the time, so obviously there's a ton of people that want to play it. I feel like this is something that they should try and go back on and maybe try it again in ARK Ascended, because I feel like this could have been a really fun kind of side game mode. At number 2, we have the Nightstand. This would have been a decoration, and it was for ARK Survival Evolved, and I think it would have been a nice decoration. I don't really understand why they didn't add this one, because I mean, they have the model all finished. They could have just put it in the game, and it would have made for a little nice decoration to put in your base, but they never added it. This was found in the dev kit for ARK Survival Evolved, so that's how we know it existed, and I always love decoration items in ARK, so I don't really know why they didn't add this one. In at number 3, we have the Kraken. This is more of a recent one, and all this footage is from a recent Raz Clark video, so I'll have that linked in the description if you want to see the full thing. But basically, when the desert update came out for Astraeos, they accidentally left in the Kraken for about an hour, which is something that Nicatus was working on. And it would have been, of course, a Kraken boss, similar to Rockwell, where you had to take out its tentacles and then defeat the Kraken, but it would have been on the water. This, of course, was taken from Atlas, so it would be similar to the Atlas version, but it did get removed shortly after, and Nicatus confirmed that it was something that he was working on and potentially thought about adding, but eventually scrapped it. But I feel like this would have been a really cool addition to the map, and would have been a very unique boss, I think. I mean, it would have been similar to Rockwell, but it would have been on the water, so very different compared to any other boss fight so far. At number 4, we have the Tek Wyvern Saddle. This was added to the ARK dev kit all the way back in 2017, and that was back when they were still adding new tech saddles to pre-existing creatures, and it seemed like the Wyvern was going to be one of them, which was a bit odd because the Wyvern didn't even have a normal saddle, and they were going to give it a tech saddle, and also the Wyvern had a breath attack, so it wouldn't really make sense to have lasers on it, which I'm assuming is why they decided to scrap having a Tek Wyvern saddle. That, and also the fact Wyverns were already pretty powerful in PvP at the time, so giving them armor probably would have made them even more powerful, and they still are pretty powerful, so I don't know. It might be a little bit overpowered having a saddle like this, but at the same time there's tons of overpowered stuff in the game now, so maybe if they came back and added this one, it would be kind of cool, but I kind of see why they decided to scrap the idea of a Tek Wyvern saddle. However, it does look really cool on the Wyvern though. I really love the way it looks. And at number 5, we have the Totem. This either would have been a structure in a cave, or it would have been a decoration, and I think it was some sort of decoration that you could place down around your base. Maybe you could make it with clay or something like that. Maybe that's what they were planning on making it like, but of course this one didn't end up coming out. It was found in the dev kit, which is how we know about it, and is labeled as some sort of structure, which is why I think it is some sort of, decoration that you could have placed it down. And I think this would have just been a nice decoration to add. I don't see why this would have been a bad thing to add, but they scrapped it. This was also labeled as something in Scorched Earth, so if this was added, it would have been a Scorched Earth exclusive item. And at number 6, we have Deathworm Babies. We know about this from some concept art, which, as you can see, there's the normal Deathworm on the left, which is what it looks like in the game, except it's not fully out of the ground in the game. But then on the right, you can see there's Deathworms in a larva state, or, kind of a baby form. And this was for the original version of Scorched Earth on ARK Survival Evolved. This would have been a long time ago, before wild babies were even a thing. Now, since this is concept art, that doesn't mean it was super far in the planning phase, but if they did end up adding this one, I don't know if they would have just been in the wild that you could find them, or maybe you could tame the babies or something like that. I don't really know what it would entail, which is probably why they decided not to add it, because they didn't really know what you'd even do with it. The concept art for this was made by Dave Melvin, and he's made a bunch of the concept art for ARK Survival Evolved, and I'll have his art station and Twitter linked in the description if you want to see more of it. At number 7, we have the artifact of the Flamekeeper. This is a pretty small one, but it would have just been another artifact that was part of Scorched Earth, adding to a total of 4 artifacts, and it was called the artifact of the Flamekeeper. We just have this one image of what it would look like in the game. At number 8, we have the Phoenix Saddle. These images are from an old Syntac video, which I'll have linked in the description, but basically way before the Phoenix even came out, it was in the dev kit, as you can see right here, and it looked a little bit different than the Phoenix did nowadays, but it also had a saddle, which I think makes a lot more sense because right now you kind of just sit on the Phoenix while it's on fire, which I feel like would kill you pretty much instantly. So, I mean, saddle probably wouldn't help it in realistic terms anyway, but I feel like it'd make a little bit more sense, and it could give it some armor as well, which would be nice to have. So, I don't know, I feel like this would have been a cool idea to have a saddle for a Phoenix. And at number 9, we have the Hive. This is a new creature that's planned on being added to Scorched Earth. We know about it from some concept art that we've seen, but it was also in the dev kit, and the model was complete for it. And the footage you're seeing now is from the Hive Pod mod, which adds the Hive as a creature to the game using the pre-existing model in the dev kit. But anyway, the Hive would have spawned on Scorched Earth, and it probably would have spawned in caves, or maybe it would have spawned in the dunes. I'm not entirely sure, but it would have been a bug type creature, and I think this was a pretty cool one. Not really sure why they decided to scrap this one, considering how far they got with making it. The Hive Pod would also be able to spawn in these swarm bugs that could attack you, I'm assuming what it would do is it would just start spawning them out when it sees you and then sends them to attack you, and then you could probably tame it as well. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to tame it, but a pretty cool creature that for some reason never got added to the game. At number 10, we have the Desert Ray. This would have been a new creature that I'm assuming from the name would have spawned in the desert. This could have either been a creature for Scorched Earth or maybe the desert area on Extinction. I'm thinking this looks more like a Extinction type creature, but we don't really know which map it was supposed to be on. The creature itself is a really cool looking design. I'm assuming it would probably fly around, or maybe if it was supposed to be in the desert, maybe it could like swim in the sands of the dunes. I think that'd also be cool. Both of those would be cool ideas, I think. This is definitely a very unique looking creature, and kind of sucks we never got it, but you know, that's just how it is sometimes. At number 11, we have the Dracorex, which would have been a new dinosaur, and as you can see, it kind of looks very similar to the Patchy. It is a similar species. We don't know how big it would have been in game, but in real life, it's about the size of what the Patchy is in game. If I had to guess why they didn't add it, maybe it was too similar to the Patchy and didn't really have any other abilities besides that. So my guess is that it was just too similar, and that's why they decided to scrap it. At number 12, we have the Cranioceras. This would have been a new deer-like creature, which would kind of be similar to the Megaloceros. In real life, these things were pretty small, but I imagine for ARK, they probably would have upscaled it to make it rideable at least. And I think this would have been a cool fit to just have another deer-type creature in the game, other than just having the Megaloceros. Not sure on any of the abilities that this thing would have, but I think it would have been a nice addition. At number 13, we have the crab. All we have is this concept art of it. We don't know if it was going to be a giant crab or a small one, but you know, it's ARK, so it'd probably at least be a giant one, you know, at least rideable, I think. This could have also just been an early concept for the Gorgonops, but it seems a little bit too different to be the Gorgonops, so I think it would have been some sort of crab thing, and maybe it could have even spawned on the island as something you could find on the beaches, which I think would be pretty awesome. I think having a crab that looks like this in the game would be really cool, and this is something I wish they would kind of go back to and try again. This video is sponsored by War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and is available now for PC, consoles, and mobile devices. Take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. Immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder, where incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects place you right at the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. War Thunder now has an all-new mobile version available on iOS and Android, allowing you to join in on the battlefield wherever you go. The mobile version features intuitive controls, immersive graphics, and the familiar massive multiplayer warfare and dynamic ground and sea battles with air support. War Thunder offers 3 distinct modes, each ramping up in realism progressively. Arcade suits those craving fast-paced matches with enhanced vehicle performance and simplified physics, while simulator mode ditches all guardrails for ultimate challenge. Realistic mode, the perfect middle ground, strikes a balance between intensity and authenticity. However you choose to play, you'll find it here. War Thunder features a comprehensive customization system with countless camouflages, historical markings, and decorations for all types of vehicles, including community-created ones. As someone who loves customization in video games, I really enjoy this feature. War Thunder has one of the most sophisticated vehicle damage models in gaming. Every vehicle is intricately modeled down to its individual components, like engines, fuel tanks, weapons, and crew, all susceptible to damage or disabling from enemy fire, and different types of armor, shells, and missiles behave like their real-world counterparts. Join a worldwide community of over 95 million players in epic PvP battles today, and delve into the breathtaking experience that is War Thunder. With an unmatched wealth of high-quality content to discover, there's simply no better better game for fans of the military genre. Remember that War Thunder can be played for free on PC, console, and mobile devices. New or returning players who have not played in the last 6 months on PC and consoles can sign up using my links in the description or the pinned comment to get the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, as well as 7 days of a premium account and 100,000 silver lions for a limited time only. At number 14, we have the Chupacabra, which would have been a brand new creature that is very similar looking to the Nameless. And I honestly think that this is a early version of what the Nameless was going to look like, but it's not confirmed or anything. Either way, this thing is pretty gnarly looking, and there's also another version of it, as you can see here, and I like the second version a lot more. It's a lot more hairy, and it's got weird teeth coming out of its face, and I think this one's a lot cooler. Either way, we pretty much got this in the form of the Nameless, so it's not terrible that this thing didn't end up getting added. At number 15 is the Lightning Tail. This would have been a new, very unique looking creature, and I don't know what map it was gonna be on, but this looks like something that would be on Genesis, and it would have had some lightning abilities that would have had to do with its tail. It could probably charge up or something like that. You can only really tell from this one image right here, but nothing really like this in the game. And at number 16, we have the Gorgonops. This is easily one of the most suggested creatures in the entire game. People have been begging Wildcard to add it for years now, and at one point in time, they even were working on it, as you can see right here. This is what the concept art looked for it, and I think it looked pretty good. Not sure why they decided to scrap this one. It's a pretty unique looking creature, and I think it could have been a really awesome one. I wish they would come back and add the Gorgonops. And at number 17 is a Magmasaur kind of like creature. I don't think this is the Magmasaur, like an early development of it. I think it is something else, because it is a lot different, but it also could be. I don't really know. Either way, this thing looks pretty crazy. I imagine this thing would be pretty big. I mean, it kind of looks like it's big, but you don't really have a size comparison there. But whatever this thing is, it looks like an absolute beast. At number 18, we have the Platybelodon. This thing is a similar species to an elephant, and it is pretty big. It's not as big as a normal elephant is, but still a pretty big creature. And this concept art makes it look a lot like the Phiomia, which maybe that's why they decided not to add it, because they thought it looked too similar to Phiomia. But honestly, I think that if they made it pretty big, then make it more like an elephant type creature, I think it could have been a really unique looking creature in ARK, and I think it would have fit right in. At number 19, we have the Siats. This was kind of a mid-sized theropod, and I can kind of see why they scrapped this one, mainly just because there's so many theropods in the game. You know, they probably wanted to work on other creatures, even though they still do add theropods like all the time, but you know, there is already a lot of theropods, so that's the reason I'm guessing they didn't add this one. At number 20, we have the Tianyuraptor. To me, this thing kind of looks like an Archaeopteryx and a Troodon mixed together, and it's around the same size as the Troodon. Don't really know why they scrapped this one, other than that maybe it was too similar to some of the other creatures, or they just didn't know what it would do in game. I mean, I don't really know what it would do either, so that's probably why. At number 21, we have this crazy alien looking thing. I have no clue what this would have been, if this would have been tameable, or what map it would be on. I'm gonna guess that it wasn't tameable, and if I had to guess what map it was on, maybe Aberration. I feel like this is something that Rockwell would make, so this kind of looks like a Rockwell type creature, so Aberration is my guess for what map it would be on. I think this thing would have been pretty cool in game, and it's pretty nutty looking. At number 22 is a colorful HUD. As you probably know, the HUD in ARK is usually like this turquoise color for everything, but it wasn't originally going to be like that. And we know this because in the original trailer for ARK Survival Evolved, there is about a split-second part of the trailer where you can see the HUD, and it's actually colored in. The health bar is red, the stamina is green, the health bar is like kind of a yellowish orange, and then the water's blue, obviously. And I kind of like this. I don't know if I'd like it better or not. Maybe I'd have to play with it a little bit to see if I'd actually like it more, but I feel like it's not a bad thing to have more color in the HUD. At number 23, we have the original design for the teleporter. Right now, it's kind of just big and circular, but the original design for it seemed to be a lot smaller, and it was this pad right here. You've probably seen it before because it's in a ton of mods because it was in the dev kit, but this is what the teleporter was originally going to look like. We also know this because in the magazine for PC Gamer, they showed off a bunch of the concept art for the tech stuff, and as you can see, the teleporter looks a lot different than it does in game, and it also kind of seems like this version of it makes like a portal on top of it. Now that could just be like the art, maybe it didn't actually plan on doing that, but I feel like that would be really cool if they actually like it made a portal where you could see where you're going before you hop in. I mean, that's pretty awesome. But either way, I think the teleporter we got now is probably better just because it's a lot bigger, so you can fit all the dinosaurs that you want to teleport onto it, and it's just nice and circular, so it's really simple. At number 24, we have the cushioned bench. This was a small one, but it was basically just a variant of the normal wooden bench that had a cushion on it. I guess they didn't want to add this because they didn't want to add another structure, but with ARK Ascended, I feel like they could have just made it like a different variant of the wood bench, and then you could have more options. So I don't see why they don't add it back with ARK Survival Ascended and just make it as another wood bench variant. At number 25, we have two skins that were meant to be on Aberration. First off, we have this pickaxe skin, which looks really cool. I love the design of this, and it's for the metal pick, and it just looks great. It's got the little skull on top of it. It's not like a complete overhaul, it's just a tiny little detail touch up, and I think it looks amazing. I'm not sure why they decided not to add this one, because I think it looks great. Then there's the club skin, which also looks really cool as well. It's kind of got like spikes coming out of it, which seems like it'd be a lot more lethal, but it looks really cool either way. Not really sure why they decided not to add these ones, as they're just skins, so I feel like might as well add them. It's not like it's going to change the gameplay in any way, so I don't know. I feel like they should have added these. At number 26, we have the Stool. This was found in the dev kit, and it was meant to be an exclusive item for Aberration. Once again, not really sure why they decided not to add this one, as the Stool seemed like it was complete and ready to go, so they could have just thrown it in there as an extra little decoration, and not really going to complain about having extra decorations. And I feel like they could add this to the game now in ARK Ascended as like a variant of the chair, where you just, instead of using a chair, you can switch it to the stool and then use it that way. I think it would be pretty nice if they did that, and then you could have some more options. At number 27 is the original design for Rockwell. Most of you guys probably know what Rockwell looks like in game nowadays, but some of the original concept art shown off for Rockwell is a lot different than what it looks like now. As you can see, this one's a lot more scary looking, and I really love the design of this one. Honestly, I don't know if I'd like it more than the Rockwell we have now, but this one's really cool looking. It's kind of creepy and eerie, and I like that about it. This concept art was made by Caleb. He's made a ton of the concept art for ARK, so I'll have his art station linked in the description if you want to see more of it. And in number 28, we have tracer rounds. This would have been an ammo type for the assault rifle that would have been exclusive to Aberration. I'm using the scrap to assets mod to show what this would have looked like, but it could have looked a lot different from this. I don't think this is exactly what it was like, but it would give you a good idea. The tracer rounds were found in the Aberration section of the dev kit, so that's how we know that they were going to exist. And I can kind of see why they didn't add these, because there's not really that much of a use for them, I don't think. At least I can't really think of any use that you would need a tracer round for an ARK, so that's probably why they decided to just scrap it. At number 29, we have some titans that were almost added to Extinction, but ended up getting scrapped. This is the first concept art for the first titan, and I don't really know what this one would have been called or anything like that, but it's really different looking. It kind of looks like humanoid in a way, like it kind of just looks like a dude, but like with a ton of armor on or something like that. But you can see someone swinging from him, so you can see a little size comparison right there. This thing is pretty crazy looking, but obviously we didn't end up getting this titan, and I'm not sure this one would have fit in with the other ones, so I can kind of see why they just scrapped this design for the titan, even though it is pretty cool. Then there's the second design, which I think is awesome. This kind of looks like a rock titan, or maybe a mountain titan. I don't really know what this one would be called, but it's made of rocks, as you can clearly see, and I love the design of this one. I'm really sad this one didn't make it into the game, because this one just looks awesome. It maybe could have even been like more of a tank. Maybe it did like less damage, but it was like a tanky kind of titan. I don't really know, or it could just be super powerful. Who knows? This one looks awesome though. I love the design of this one, and I'm really sad this one did not make it into Extinction. At number 30, we have the original Titan designs. This is all concept art of what the Titans could have looked like, starting with the Ice Titan. As you can see, it looks pretty similar to the one we get nowadays, but it doesn't have as many spikes going down its back. It's just kind of like big chunks of ice. Then there's a bunch of other variants right here that look a lot different than the version that we have. I mean, same kind of body structure, but a lot of it's completely different. It's even got ice going down its arms in these ones. I really do like this design that has the massive horns. I think this one probably is the best out of all these, but I think the Ice Titan that we got is probably the best out of all of these, so I think we actually got the best outcome here. Then there's the original design for the Forest Titan, and here is the normal Forest Titan for comparison, and honestly, I think this original concept is a little bit better. It has a different face, and I think the face looks a lot more intimidating on the original concept for it, rather than the one we got, and also the arms. Its left arm is kind of balled up into a fist, and then the right one is kind of more open. It looks like it's got roots coming out of it, so I think that was a lot cooler of design than just having like kind of normal hands. I still like the regular Forest Titan, but I think this original concept was just a little bit better. And then we have the original design for the Desert Titan. It looks pretty much identical to the one we got, except for the fact the one we got has these little flaps underneath it, which I think look better, so I think the finalized version we got is better than the original concept for it. At number 31, we have different biomes that were going to be in Extinction. This first one was called the Overseer Tendril, and this place is so cool looking. We only have this one picture of it, but I love the look of this biome. It kind of adds to that wasteland kind of feel of Extinction that I was hoping Extinction would be in. If you watched my video on ranking every map, map, you know, I was complaining about how they could have had such cooler biomes, as well as just have other biome variety than just having like reused stuff like the desert and the Arctic biome. And this right here is what I meant by that. They could have had so many cool biomes like this one right here, and it would have just spiced up Extinction so much more, and I think it would have made it a lot more fun. So I definitely think it was a missed opportunity not including this biome. This next biome doesn't have a name, but it also looks pretty cool. Kind of looks like a swampy area. It would have been on Extinction. Still think this would have been pretty cool to have. You know, maybe replace some of the areas like the Arctic and desert, like I said. So I think this could have been a nice addition. And then this last concept is for No Man's Land, which of course is already in Extinction, and it looks similar to this, but not exactly the same. This version is kind of more snowy, and it kind of looks a lot like Lost Colony, but not exactly like Lost Colony. I think this is a pretty cool concept, but at the same time, I think the No Man's Land we got was actually pretty cool, so can't really complain here. At number 32 is the Strider was originally going to be on Extinction, and it wasn't a tech creature like it is now on Genesis Part 2. As you can see, it was planned to be an actual creature, and this was planned to spawn on Extinction. I think this concept looks really cool, and I feel like this would have fit Extinction really well, so I'm curious to see why they decided not to add this, because I feel like it would have been a cool creature that would have fit Extinction, so I don't really know why they didn't add this one. But obviously we did end up getting it with Genesis Part 2 with the tech version. At number 33, we have the Wasteland Armor sets that could have been in the Bob's Tall Tale DLC. We got 2 armor sets in the Bob's Tall Tale DLC, and then we got 4 different helmets. These are what the helmets look like that we currently have, but here are some of the armor and helmets that didn't make it into the final cut. And honestly, I think all of these are pretty cool. Some of these helmets are really dope, like that one that is in the center right there with the skull on it. I think that one looks awesome. This one on the left right here, also I love the design of this one. Kind of looks like a hammerhead shark almost, but I think that's pretty dope. Also, this chest piece on the right that's made of like a rib cage is also pretty awesome looking. I just think all of these were pretty cool. It would have been nice to have them, but I guess they can only pick a little bit. Then there's a second page of these, and I think this is the coolest armor set right here. These 2. These are awesome. So we'll start with this one with the trike helmet on the left. This trike helmet is super cool looking. I love the design of this one. It's awesome. And as you can see, it's got like a gas mask coming out of the front of it. It just looks great. And then the armor itself is like a bunch of fur, or that might be feathers, can't really tell, but yeah, it's coming down there. It's got the rib cage part. It's got like a skull as a little shoulder piece. It's just so cool looking. Then on the right, there is another helmet that looks super cool that has like tons of feathers coming off of it. It's like a little skull almost, but it's got like ram horns coming off the side. That is also such a sick looking helmet. This armor set and both of these helmets, I really wish would have made it. These look so cool. At number 34, we have the Warrig Truck. With the Bob's Tall Tale DLC, we got the battle rigs, which are like customizable cars. But as you can see, they were planning on having a truck version, which had a huge bed at the back, which I'm assuming you'd be able to build on, kind of like you can with the monster truck version. But the monster truck version doesn't have a bed that's that big. This one kind of seems like it'd be more for utility, which I feel like would be really cool, honestly. So I like the idea of the truck, and I feel like they should add it, you know? At number 35 is the Velociraptor saddle skin. For the original picture for the Bob's Tall Tale DLC, they showed off this Velociraptor, which had an armor-like saddle, which would have been a skin for it, because that's how all the other saddles were like in the picture as well, like the Rock Drake. So it's pretty safe to assume that this would have been a skin. But when the Wasteland War DLC came out, this skin was nowhere to be found, which kind of sucks, but you know, it's not that big of a deal. And at number 36, we have the net gun. This was found in the div kit, was originally meant to be an exclusive DLC item for Scorched Earth, and this would have been like an upgraded version of the Bola. But years after this was found in the dev kit, it was actually added to Genesis Part 2 accidentally and then quickly removed, and it could net creatures up to the size of a Giga. So this thing was completely broken if they were planning on actually adding it, so maybe it's a good thing it's not in the game. Also in Genesis Part 2, they added the net projectile, and it works pretty much the same as the net gun does, except it's not nearly as overpowered as the net gun was going to be if it did get it added. I did also mention this in the 50 removed features video, but I included it here because it was originally meant to be for Scorched Earth, and of course it never ended up coming to Scorched Earth at any point. And at number 37 is breeding animations. Yeah, you heard that right. They were planning on adding animations for breeding for dinos in the game, and we know this because there is an animation of what the dodo breeding animation is going to look like, which is what you've been seeing on screen. So yeah, that's nice. I think you could see why they decided not to add this one. At number 38, we have custom map creatures. These were creature variants that were in a mod map before it was added to the official game, and they removed them once they were added. The reason I include these is because some creatures like the crystal wyverns also fall into this category, but they were added to the game, so that means the other ones could have had a chance but ended up not making it. And we're going to start with the crystal griffin, which was on Crystal Isles before Crystal Isles came to the official game, and it was a variant of griffin that would spawn in like pink and purple and white coloring, and it had crystals on its head. It was a really cool variant, and I'm not really sure why they decided to remove this one because it was pretty cool. Then there's the liquefied variants, which are like skeletal blue transparent glowing variants that can be found in the Eldritch Isle area of Crystal Isles. And it is a shame that these got cut from the official release of Crystal Isles because they made the Eldritch Isle look so much more scary and eerie, and it made it feel super unique too. Yeah, there's no other creature that looks like this in the game, so having all of these variants were so cool. I definitely think with ARK Ascended they should bring these back for sure. Then there's the Grand Ember Truss, which I can actually see why they removed this one because it's basically just a phoenix. Like, it's the exact same, except it has the ability to land and the ability to moonwalk. Plus it has a saddle as well, but it's basically just a phoenix, but it doesn't spawn during heat waves. So I can see why they decided not to add this one with the official release. And then there was some cut NPCs from Fjordur called the Draugr. These would have spawned in one of the caves in Fjordur as NPCs that you could fight, and they were not tameable or anything. If you want to see some footage of them, there is a Syntech video I'll have linked in the description where you can see these in action in the cave. Not sure why they took these out because of course they're not tameable, and they just would have made the caves a little bit more fun. So I think they should add these back. At number 39, we have some early concepts of what some of the Genesis Part 1 biomes could have looked like instead of what they look like now. Starting with the bog biome, in this picture, there's some huge trees, kind of like there is in the bog biome, but these look a little bit different than they do, and this kind of looks a lot more open, and I think that's kind of a cool idea, even though I do really like what we got with the bog biome. This one right here is pretty similar to what we got, I think, except for the cliffs are a bit more white, which I do kind of like the look of, actually. I think that's kind of a cool idea. But this concept for the bog biome makes it look a lot more dense, which I also kind of really like the idea of that, but you know, I do also like the version we got with the huge trees. But some of the plants from this one ended up making it in, but I like the dense kind of vibe of this one. It's a little bit creepy looking. Then we have the early concepts for the lunar biome, which I think look a lot better than what the lunar biome looks like now. I like this version right here where it's kind of like white and gray and kind of got a little bit of blue in there. It kind of looks like it's frozen over. It looks kind of dead almost, but like there's still light coming in. This like looks super cool. I love the look of this. I wish the actual lunar biome would have looked more like it did in these concept arts, because I think this looks a lot different. But these next concepts for the lunar biome are even crazier looking. Starting with this first one, there's like red trees that are coming through, which I love that idea of those. I think that looks awesome. And also in this concept, it looks like the islands are way more connected, as you can see, and there's like light peeking through the little holes, and I think that looks awesome. That's way cooler than the lunar biome we got, so I love this concept right here. Then there's this next one with kind of like blue trees, and then you got some foliage hanging down. Once again, like the other one, it feels a lot more dense than the lunar biome that we got. I love the look of this one too. This is also just really cool. And then here's the third concept, which is my least favorite of the three, but it's pretty cool. It looks like these big like rune stones that are just floating in the air, which is kind of interesting. And then you got like a green tree to the left over there. All of these concepts are super interesting, and honestly I think all of them are pretty much better than what we got. So I feel like I wish they would have implemented more of these into the final version. There's also some concepts for the oceans, which don't look too different from the ones we got, other than this picture right here, where the underground terrain looks a lot better, I think, where there's kind of like these floating bits in the water, which I think looks awesome. Then there's this concept of what the air pockets could have looked like, and I think this looks a lot cooler with like the little circular area where you come in instead of just having like the flat area. That looks super cool, and I love the look of that. So I kind of wish they would have implemented that as like the entrance into the air pockets. At number 40, we have the Genesis Part 1 artifacts. A lot of people were complaining when Genesis Part 1 first came out because there were no artifacts in the map to collect, but they were originally planning on having 3 artifacts, but they only modeled 2 of them in the dev kit. And this is what the 2 they modeled looked like, and this isn't what colors they would actually be. This is just like a placeholder color, so they probably would have been different colors and they would have been glowing, but this gives you a good example of what these looked like. These were really cool looking artifacts. We don't know what the names were called, but I really like the look of this one right here. It's really crazy looking, and the other one I like too 2, but just not as much. At number 41, we have the X Dragon. The X creatures are variants on Genesis Part 1, and they had an X variant for the Dragon boss. This is assumed to be in one of the missions where you would have to fight it, but of course that never ended up happening. And you could spawn this thing in for a little bit, so it was actually in the game, but they removed the ability to spawn it a while ago. Either way, don't know why they didn't throw this in a mission. I mean, this would have been super cool to fight, so I don't really know. I feel like it was a missed opportunity. At number 42, we have the VR Yuty and Daeodon. These would have been enemies in the Corrupted Master Controller fight, just like the Corrupted Dinotaur Rex and other variants. So this is what they would have looked like if they were finished, but of course we only have this footage right here, which is of their unfinished models that you can actually still spawn in. However, these didn't get added, probably because they just didn't really fit into the boss fight very well. At number 43, we have some early concepts for the Genesis Part 2 biomes. For Genesis Part 2, we just have the concept of the one biome that is the ship itself, and in these concept arts it makes it look like it takes up a lot more of the ship. Also, there's more buildings that you can go inside of in this concept art, as you can see at the bottom left and the top right here. Then there's the second concept for it, which kind of looks a little bit more similar to what we have, but still a little bit different. And also there's this flying ship that's going by that we definitely don't have in the base game. At number 44, we have the Genesis Part 2 Regrowing Structures. This video right here was made by Codico Alex and is a mod, and this is not what the structures would have looked like, but this is how they would have functioned. It basically would have been a structure that if you damaged it and didn't destroy it all the way, it could fully re-heal itself. So the only way to actually destroy it is by completely taking it out, because it could just auto repair itself. Now the reason they didn't add this is because apparently structures take up a lot of memory for the game, and, you know, if ARK didn't take up enough memory already, but supposedly if they did add a new structure type, it would add a ton more memory, so they decided not to add it. Kind of sucks because I always like getting new structure types and we haven't got some in forever, but at least we're getting the skins now at least. At number 45, we have the R-Direbear. As you probably know, on Genesis Part 2 there are R variants of creatures, but there was one that didn't make it in for some reason, and that was the R-Direbear, which doesn't really make any sense because it was complete. I mean, you can even spawn it in end game. That's the footage you're seeing now. It's like, I don't understand why they didn't just make it spawn in. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me, but I feel like they're gonna add it back when they add Genesis 2 to ARK Ascended. At number 46, we have the Dune Buggy. This footage is from an old Slipgator video, which I'll have linked in the description, but the Dune Buggy was gonna be some sort of vehicle that they were planning on adding, but they never did. But you could spawn it in at one point in the game. However, you could never actually obtain it like in a legitimate way, so they technically never added it to the base game, and you could never actually get it, which kind of sucks because I feel like this would have been kind of cool. They've basically added it now with the battle rigs, but those look a little bit different than the Dune Buggy did. The Dune Buggy also had the ability to drive up sheer cliffs, which was a pretty cool ability actually, even though it didn't really make too much sense. At number 47, we have the old designs for the ARK logo. Now technically this isn't a part of the game per se, but it is on the loading screen, so that is enough criteria for me to count it on this list. But I mainly just included it because it is pretty interesting. This first logo here, as you can see, looks a lot different than the main one. Mainly the colors are a lot different with the purples and the blues, and then you have the diamonds coming off the top of it. I mean, this one definitely needed some work for sure, but is close to the original one. Then you've got this one, which actually spells out all of ARK with the AR and the K, and I really like the way this one looks, honestly. I think obviously the normal one's better, but this is kind of cool too. Then you have this one, which is like dark gray and blue, which is alright, I guess, but you know, I think the other ones were better. And then finally you had this one, which is the closest to the original ARK logo, but just a little bit worse. I think the final ARK logo was better than all of these by far, but it's interesting to see what could have been. At number 48, we have the Koolasuchus. This probably would have been a creature that would have spawned on the island and was an amphibious creature, very similar to the Diplocalus, which is probably why they decided not to add it, just because it is too similar looking to it. That is my guess on why they decided to scrap this thing. Also, I meant to include this with all the other creatures, but I forgot to, so yeah, it's here now. At number 49 is some sort of Tek Bosses. There was 3 main ones, which was the Wyvern, the Megapithecus, and a giant dodo, and they were made up of kind of like these black floating shards with a red heart in the center. And this was before the Overseer boss fight came out, so it's assumed that these ended up becoming what would be the Overseer, so this is like an early version of that fight. But we could have saw a Wyvern or a giant dodo in there, or even in the back there was even a Rex variant. I think the black with the red heart actually looks way cooler, honestly. It looks super awesome. I don't have a video of it, but it does like move as well, which is also pretty awesome, but I'm pretty sure these were removed from the dev kit, so we can't see them anymore. That's how we knew they existed. And at number 50, we have some old designs of creatures that almost made it instead of the original ones. Starting with the Equus right here. This one looks a lot different than the current counterpart that we have. I think this one's more realistic, apparently, so that's a bit interesting, but I think I really like the Equus that we got. Next, we have the Thorny Dragon, which looks a lot different, especially around the face, but I think the original Thorny Dragon that we ended up getting is better than this old concept of it. Next up, we have the original design for the Wyvern, and this one looks way different than the one we have in game. First off, its neck is super long, its face is completely different, basically everything about it is different. It's really cool looking, and I like it a lot, but I think I definitely prefer the normal Wyverns that we have, but I do like this design of the Wyvern, honestly. I think it's pretty cool. After that, we have the Titanoboa, which is not that different from the regular one. The only difference is the original version was not going to have a frill on it, which I think it's a good design choice that they put the frill on there, so definitely prefer the normal version that we got. Next up, we have the Jellyfish, which in the original concept art was kind of an orangish red color, and in the base game, as you can see, is blue, and it's always blue, which kind of makes me think, why can't the jellyfish have different colors in ARK? I feel like that'd be a super easy thing to implement, just make it to where it can be different colors, and I feel like that'd be kind of cool, but yeah, that's about the only difference here. And then we have the Acrocanthosaurus, which is a bit of an interesting story because they planned to add this a long time ago, but of course they ended up canceling it, and this is what the concept art looked like for it. But then they added Gruga's version and from the ARK Editions mod to the official game, so now we can see what Gruga's version looks like versus the official concept art, and I think I like Gruga's version a little bit more. Then there's the Gigantoraptor, which is also an interesting story because this one was made quite a long time ago, and then they ended up canceling it, but years later it ended up winning the Ragnarok creature vote, so we got it in the game, and the version we ended up getting looks a billion times better than the original concept art. This is easily the biggest glow up so far. I just love the design of the Gigantoraptor that we have in the game now. Then there's the original design for the mech, and this one's a lot different. It's got really long legs, it's got big shoulders, it's got a sword as an arm and a gun as an arm, unlike the normal mech, which is just holding them. It's a lot different, but I quite like this design. I don't know if I like it more than the original one, but it's still pretty good. Then there's this other design for the mech, which is a lot more bulky and a little bit shorter, but it's got a huge shield as an arm, and it's got another cannon as an arm, which is a really cool design. I also really like this design. I might like this one a little bit more than the normal mech. Then there's the Ferox, which looks a little bit different than the current one that we have. Starting off with the small version of it, you can see the face is a little bit different, but the body's pretty much the same, other than the tail seems maybe it's a little bit longer, but I think I like the face on the concept art just a little bit more. Then there's the big version, which I also think I like the concept a little bit more, just because it looks a little bit more intimidating with the face, where it also kind of has like that beard, so I don't know, I just like it a little bit more. It's not a huge difference though. Next up is the Oasisaur. As you can see, this one looks a lot different, mainly in its back. It seems like it was able to close the oasis that was on its back. That's what I'm taking from this, that way you could open and close it, but that would really make sense on why you'd need to do that, which is why it would make sense that they would just remove that feature. And this is it compared to its normal variant. As you could see, a lot different looking when its shell is closed up, so I think it makes sense that it can't do that. They also had a few different faces that they could give it. This first one, I'm not really the biggest fan of, kind of just looks like an old man, but this second variant I actually really like, even though I think the final design they went with, which is the third one, I think is the best. Then there's the gas bags, which I honestly love the design of this, and its name was the Whoopty Caterpillar, which is kind of insane, and it's got like bubbles coming out of its eyes and a huge tail, and this is crazy looking. This is it compared to the normal gas bags, and honestly I think I like the Whoopty Caterpillar a little bit more. And then we have the Velonosaur, which its body doesn't look that much different, but its head looks a lot different than it does in game, as you can see right here, but it's mainly because it has a head of quills that it shoots, which I think looks really cool, honestly. I don't know which one I like more. Remember to check out War Thunder for free on PC, console, and mobile devices. Use the links in the pinned comment or description to claim the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, as well as 7 days of a premium account and 100,000 silver lions for a limited time only, and available to new and returning players on PC and consoles. Don't miss it. That's gonna be it for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe. Thanks for watching, and bye.